welcome to online class with me Nusrat Alam, lecturer in English, Milestone College. How are you all? I hope you all are fine and very busy with your studies. My today's online class is on a very interesting and very important topic. And this is the only graphical presentation that you have in your English syllabus. Yes, you got me right. Our today's online class is on graphs and chart description. We find it in English first paper, question number 10 and total marks 10. Well, you might think that what is a graph chart and what is the use of it? A chart is a graphic presentation of data in which the data is presented by symbols. For example, in a bar chart, the data is presented in a bar. In a line chart, the data is shown in line, and in pie chart, the data is shown in slice. We normally use graphs and charts to present or to organize numerical and qualitative data. Well, you might think that what is the use of these kind of graphs and charts? Well, let me tell you. By the help of or with the help of a graph or chart, we can show a lot of data and their comparison in a short place. For example, the population growth rate of Bangladesh within 20 or 30 years can easily be shown in a bar chart. Or the big issue, the national budget distribution, the distribution of budget can be shown easily with the help of a pie chart. Well, there are different types of graphs and charts that we find in our books, in different articles or newspapers. I'm going to introduce with you some of the popular and common graphs that we often see. First of all, bar chart. I think it's very well known to you and you must have seen it in your book and in different places also. The bar chart actually has bars, and the bars, each of the bar stands for an individual information, a separate information. And in a bar chart like that can show data of different times in one place. Pie chart looks like this, and a pie chart considers all the informations as 100% and shows how many percentage of that information or of that thing has been separated into different places. For example, if I want to show that what is the time allocation of a student in a whole day, the student spends 24 hours in different sectors. For example, in school, colleges, in study, in playing games. So this 24 hours is considered to be 100%, and a pie chart shows how many percentage of time the student spends in different sectors. Another graph chart that looks something like bar charts, it is called histogram. Histograms are used to show the value changes in a particular range. I think this chart is well known to you because we all love seeing cricket, and during a match, the batting lineup of two teams is often shown in this way with the help of a line chart. And it also shows the comparison of those two teams' performance. And finally, I have Cartesian graph. It is also very common and well known to you. You must have attempted them in mathematics as well. They are mostly used over there, or we see them being used over there commonly. Now, what is our duty in exam? Are we going to draw a graph or present a graph? No, but the opposite. We will be given a graph or chart, and analyzing the graph, we have to write them or describe it in language. As in English, we are learning language. We are not going to draw the graph, but we are going to explain all the informations, highlighting all the data, and we will write it in such a way so that the audience or the reader finds it very important to read. Now let us see a sample question. How does the question, graph or chart description in our exam comes? And we will also talk about that how are we going to write that graph or chart in our exam paper or in language. So let us see the question first. Check out, my dear students. This is how a question on graph or chart looks. The question says, look at the chart. It shows the sources of USA electricity in 1980. The first line is talking about the topic of the chart and the time
from when or from the time when they have collected this data. Now analyze the chart focusing the main aspects. What are the aspects that we have here? We have the name of the sources and their contributions as well. So we have to focus and highlight these informations in our writing. So whenever we get a question, you must focus on some certain things, and that are: what is the subject or the topic, or on which thing are the data presented. So in this question, the topic is sources of USA electricity. And then what are the sources? The name of the sources are clearly given over here. And how much do they contribute to the total growth of or total production of electricity in the USA? And the contribution of these elements or these sectors were in this picture when it was 1980. And now we have to analyze, or we have to compare them between, and then express them in our own language. So when we are going to write them in language, we have to be careful about what kind of words or what kind of language are we going to use. We have to be choosy, and we have to be careful that not to use any irrelevant or unnecessary words over there. So now we are going to go back, as we have already seen the question. Now what are the things before we start writing a graph chart description that we have to keep in our mind? Let us go there and find out what are the things that we should be careful about when we are going to write graph chart description.
You must have noticed how easy it is to understand when the informations are given in a graph or chart. So it is easy to understand, but what we have to do? We have to explain it in language. So while picking out the words, we have to be very careful, and we have to be watchful also that not to use any unnecessary words over there. But before we start describing a graph or chart or start writing them, we need to keep something in our mind. Here are some tips before you start writing the answer or describe the graph chart. Number 1, mention the topic. It means we have to mention the topic that we are discussing in our graphs and chart description. For example, the graph could be on population growth, or it could be on the usage of internet nowadays, or it could be also about the budget. So on which topic are we going to write the description? We should clearly mention that. And while doing that, you must also be careful about, in the graph, the time is also often mentioned. You should also mention the time from which year the data has been collected. Number 2, name of the kind. Please mention what kind of graph or chart is that. Is it a pie chart, bar chart, line graph? What is it? Mention the name. If you want, you can put a headline. I don't actually call it a headline, but a beginning line, introductory line, which says that the description of the graph chart on the topic's name is given below. It is quite optional. If you want, you can add it. This is a very important thing, to write the description in 3 paras. Nowadays, students are being taught to write the description of the graph in 3 paras because every writing has some introduction and main body and conclusion. So our graph chart description also has it. First of all, we introduce our graph chart description about the topic, the time or the range of time that has been mentioned in the graph, and the data. How is it shown or presented? Is it given in hundreds, lakhs or thousands, or in percentages? And then comes the body, where we actually describe all the data that is presented in the graphs or charts. And then last one is the concluding part. So please remember, don't forget to write your graphs and chart in 3 paras. Highlighting or analyzing the data. All the data that are presented in the graphs or charts, we have to mention them, or we have to pick them up and explain it in language. Highlighting means not to miss any of the data and present them with proper importance. We also have to analyze or compare the data that are given over there. And finally, summarizing all the informations that we got there. We are going to summarize at the end of our graph chart description, where we should show comparison, we should also summarize, and not our decisions but all the information that we just have analyzed. Over that we can put a comment. Now my dear students, as you already know all the tips that you need to remember before you start writing a graph or chart description, let us describe or let us write the description of the graph that I just have shown you. The pie chart that I showed you earlier, let us solve it or let us describe it in language.
As you, my dear students, you already know what are the tips or what are the main informations or the main things that we have to keep in our mind before we start writing the description. First of all, as we have to mention the name of the graph, what is the topic of the graph or on which topic these data are dealing or talking about. This information or this pie chart is about the sources of USA electricity. So we have to mention this name in our description, that this chart is about the sources of USA electricity production. And what kind of chart is it? Is it a bar chart, pie chart, line chart? What? This chart that is presented here is a pie chart. So we should also mention the name pie chart. And then time, the information or data has been collected from 1980, and now already as we have all the things, you can also see the sources of the names of the sources of electricity production, and their contribution has been shown in percentage. So now we can start our writing. So let's see how are we going to write our graph chart in 3 para, and what are the things that we are explaining in 3 different paras. Are we repeating the same line or there is some changes? Please notice carefully. Alright. First of all, while answering or writing graphs and chart, please remember to write the question number, answer to the question number carefully and clearly on the top of your copy. And then comes our first part, the introductory part, where we are going to take the name of the subject and other information. So as it was a pie chart, let us see what we have written over here. The pie chart shows the contribution of 5 main sources of electricity production in the USA. That means there were 5 sectors, those who contributed to the total electricity production of USA in 1980. The data of different sources has been shown in percentage. As you can remember, all the data were shown in percentage and the pie chart was presented accordingly. Alright, so here is our introductory part, where we haven't used much of our words, but the introduction about what topic and about what are the things that we are going to discuss in our this graph chart description has been shown here. This is considered to be the introductory part. After this comes the main body, and over there we are going to highlight all the informations, those 5 sources that has been shown in the pie chart in detail. Let us check the question again so that we don't make any mistake. And now we are going to explain or highlight all the data, the informations that we find in the pie chart. The description could start in this way, and here as the name of the contributors is very important. First of all, we have mentioned their names. The 5 main sources which contributed to the total electricity production were oil, coal, nuclear, natural gas and hydroelectric power. 5 contributors has been mentioned in this place, and now picking up them and we will highlight their contributions. What was their contribution? The highest contribution came from coal, and it was almost half of the total production. To be exact, 46% of the total production. That means coal is the highest contributor to the total production of the USA electricity production. And then the second highest contributor was natural gas, and it contributed 24% of the total production. The third highest contribution came from hydroelectric power, 16%. Then came oil and its contribution was only 12%. The production of electricity from nuclear source was very little, and that time it was 2% only. My dear students, here I need to mention that as a pie chart is a round shaped chart, there is no beginning or ending. So you can pick up any point and start describing. It is not necessary that you have to start your description from the biggest contribution or from the biggest ratio to the lower one. It's completely your choice how you prefer describing your graph chart. This is the third or concluding part of our graph chart description, where we are going to summarize all the description that we have already given. Or we can show a comparative picture, a comparison of that graph chart. As we have seen that there were 5 contributors in electricity production of US at that time. Who was the highest contributor or who was the lowest contributor, or we can also give the most highest contributors, more than one altogether over here. For example, here we have shown in this way. So from the above description, we can say that in 1980, the production of electricity in the USA was fully dependent on coal and natural gas, covering 70% of total production. My dear students, you can remember that what was their contribution, 46% and 24%, and so in total 70% is their contribution. And the contribution of nuclear energy was less that time. I think you can remember the contribution of nuclear energy was only 2%. So we can present our comparative picture or summarization of any graph or chart in this way.
Did you notice the language that I choose or the writing has? Whenever you are putting the same kind of information or same kind of data one after another again and again, you might sound quite boring. Please remember, don't make your writing monotonous. Make it interesting for the readers, and he must have to feel that these informations are quite important for him. If you are describing a bar chart or line chart, you must notice or highlight the point when the ratio or the data is falling or going up. Please highlight those points and compare how much did it fall or how much did it rise. So my dear students, I believe how are we going to write the graphs or chart in our exam paper is quite clear to you now. And don't you think that you would be able to answer it in your exam properly? Yes, you will. And I believe that you would be able to score very good marks in your exams also. With the hope of your better result and better health, now I'm going to end up my today's class. See you some other time with some other topic. Till then, bye-bye.